Alice's Adventures in Wonderland by Lewis Carroll, created by Gravitas Dream. Alice's sister sits on a blanket by a slow river and reads in warm light. The pages hold no pictures, but her gaze softens as if the words have weight. Nearby, Alice shifts and sighs, restless with the stillness. The sister keeps reading, and the quiet turns dreamy. Alice lounges in the grass and watches the river slide past. She tries to focus on her sister's book, then gives up and scans the trees. A sudden flutter in the bushes makes her sit up straight. Curiosity snaps her boredom in half. The white rabbit bursts onto the path, clutching a pocket watch like it is life itself. It mutters about lateness and darts in sharp zigzags through the grass. The watch ticks loud enough to feel like footsteps. In a blink, the rabbit vanishes behind a hedge. Alice runs after the rabbit, skirt and apron whipping at her knees. She sees a flash of red cloth and the glint of the watch ahead. The rabbit dives into a hole at the base of a tree without slowing. Alice leans in, hesitates for a heartbeat and follows. The round hole looks too small for a sensible adventure. Cold air breathes out from the roots, carrying a faint smell of damp earth. Alice's fingers scrabble at the edge, then the ground slips away. The daylight above shrinks to a coin. Alice falls through a long tunnel that feels like a sideways hallway. Cupboards and shelves slide past her as if politely arranged for a visitor. She grabs a jar that reads empty and laughs at the absurdity even while dropping. The fall lasts long enough for fear and wonder to trade places. The tunnel stretches on with lamps and drawers that should have crashed long ago. Gravity feels optional, like a rule written in pencil. Small objects drift and spin in the air, never settling. The world below seems to call her forward without a sound. Alice lands in a bright hall lined with doors of every size. She tries a few handles and finds them all locked. A tiny door near the baseboard catches her eye with a sliver of light beyond. That thin glow becomes her whole goal. On a glass table, Alice spots a tiny golden key and a small bottle with a neat label. She picks up each item as if it might explain the room. The label dares her to trust it, and she argues with herself out loud. Finally, she makes a choice and holds the bottle close. After a sip, the hall swells around Alice like a tide. She shrinks until the table leg looks like a pillar. The tiny door is now the right size, and she presses her face to the keyhole. Beyond it, she sees a garden shining like a promise, and she aches to step through. Alice eats a small cake, convinced it will solve everything. Instead, she grows upward too fast, arms flailing for balance. Her head brushes the ceiling, and her thoughts scatter with her breath. She wonders who she is when her body refuses to match her mind. Tears spill and turn into water that spreads across the glossy floor. The hall becomes a shallow lake that reflects doors like broken mirrors. The tiny key drifts away, shining and unreachable. The sound of ripples replaces the sound of her own voice. Alice finds herself small again, now bobbing in the water she made. She paddles with quick strokes and keeps the key above the surface. A shape bumps her shoulder, and she spins around in alarm. A wet mouse appears nearby, equally startled and offended. The mouse tries to speak with dignity while clinging to a floating page. Its blue scarf is soaked, and the walking stick looks too proud for the situation. It launches into a tale of old history with theatrical seriousness. Alice listens, then accidentally upsets it with a single wrong word. The dodo waddles onto the damp bank and declares a running contest as the only solution. It blows a whistle and points in a circle as if that explains the plan. Everyone begins running whenever they feel like it, and the lack of rules becomes the rule. The confusion is so complete it feels official. When the running stops, Alice is told to hand out prizes. She gives comfits to everyone and tries to smile like a proper host. She mentions her cat in an attempt to be friendly, and the mood turns sharp. Alice realizes kindness can still land like a mistake here. The white rabbit returns in a panic, muttering about the Duchess and missing gloves. It drops a fan and a pair of tiny gloves in its hurry. Alice scoops them up before they fall into the puddles. The rabbit's urgency infects her, and she starts moving without thinking. Alice reaches a small cottage and stands at the door with fan and gloves in hand. The place looks ordinary, which makes it feel even stranger after the hall of doors. She practices a polite voice, then forgets it mid-breath. With no better plan, she steps inside. Inside the cottage, Alice finds another small bottle waiting on a table. The label offers no comfort, only certainty. She lifts it to the light and weighs the risk with her eyes. Curiosity wins again, and she takes a careful sip. The room tightens around Alice as she grows too large for it. Chairs scrape and slide as her knees lift toward her chest. She tries to stay calm, but panic presses in with the ceiling beams. The lesson returns, louder this time. Control is temporary. Outside the cottage, a small lizard messenger approaches with a rolled letter. It peers up at the window like the task is bigger than its body. The letter trembles in its grip as muffled sounds thud from inside. Even the air seems to brace for trouble. Alice shrinks enough to slip free and stumbles into the yard. She gulps fresh air as if it can reset her thoughts. The cottage behind her looks harmless again, which feels like another trick. She steps into tall grass and chooses forward over answers. The grass towers above the path like a green forest of blades. Dew drops cling to the tips like glass beads. A breeze turns the whole field into slow waves. Each rustle sounds like a hidden creature breathing nearby. A very large fluffy puppy bounds through the meadow, nose down and tail high. Its blue collar ribbon flashes as it changes direction. The ground seems to thump with cheerful weight. The puppy's playfulness feels huge enough to be dangerous. Alice raises a stick like a flag and tries to coax the puppy away from her. The puppy sniffs close, and the warm breath feels like a gust. She backs up carefully, stepping around clumps of clover. She keeps smiling, as if a smile can protect her. Ahead, giant mushrooms rise like pillars in pale blue mist. Sunbeams cut through the haze in clean lines. The air smells damp and strange, like a garden after rain. Alice walks in slower, sensing that answers might be here and not liking that at all. A caterpillar sits on a mushroom cap, calm as a judge. Smoke curls from its pipe in slow rings that drift without hurry. It asks Alice who she is, and the question lands like a stone. Alice starts to answer, then realizes she does not know. Alice learns the mushroom can change her size in either direction. She breaks off 2 pieces and holds them like tools. For the first time, she feels a small edge of control. She decides to stop reacting and start choosing. A pigeon in a nest squawks accusations from the branches above. It insists Alice must be something dangerous because she is different. Alice argues back, offended and bewildered at once. The exchange is funny until Alice realizes the fear is real. Alice climbs down from the tree with scraped hands and tangled hair ribbon. She shakes leaves from her apron and tries to steady her breathing. The world keeps changing around her, but she forces her feet to keep moving. Determination becomes the only stable ground she has. A crooked path leads to a house with too many corners and an odd silence. Hedges lean inward as if listening. The wind carries distant laughter that stops when she looks for it. Alice steps through the gate like she is entering someone else's argument. The Duchess appears in a doorway, draped in purple and sharp certainty. Her fan hides half her face and reveals the other half at the wrong moments. She speaks in clipped warmth that feels like a threat wrapped in manners. Alice nods along, unsure which words are safe. In the kitchen, the cook turns noise into routine with brutal calm. Pots clang, lids slam, and spice dust hangs in the air like fog. The cook stirs without looking up, as if chaos is simply a recipe. Alice's eyes water, and she cannot tell if it is the spice or fear. Alice ends up carrying a wrapped bundle that squirms in her arms. The weight shifts in strange pulses that do not match breathing. She tries to comfort it with soft words, then doubts every word she says. The bundle grows lighter, as if the world is swapping what is inside. The blanket slips and falls open on the path. The moment hangs in silence, as if waiting for a reaction. Alice stares, then chooses not to stare for long. She steps away quickly, unsettled by how normal she tries to look. A chubby purple cat appears on a branch with a grin that seems too bright for daylight. The smile arrives first, then the eyes, then the rest. It watches Alice like a secret shared with itself. When it blinks, parts of it fade, as if the world cannot hold it. Alice asks the cat for directions, hoping for simple answers. The cat offers riddles with the confidence of a map. It points down 2 paths as if both lead to the same place. Alice realizes the choice is hers, and that is the most frightening gift so far. A long tea table sits under trees, already set as if the guests might return any second. Cups steam even when no one lifts them. The air feels stuck, like a clock that forgot to tick. Alice approaches with caution and a strange hunger for company. The March Hare pours tea with frantic enthusiasm, splashing more than it serves. It rearranges cups as if order can be invented through motion. The table looks used up and freshly set at the same time. Alice senses the party has been repeating itself forever. The Mad Hatter greets Alice like she has interrupted a sacred meeting. His patched clothes and tall hat look like they survived a storm of ideas. He speaks fast, circles back, and contradicts himself without blinking. Alice tries to follow, and the effort makes her head ache. A dormouse sleeps curled in a teacup, impossible and accepted. It murmurs a few words that almost form a story, then sinks back into silence. No one is surprised, which makes it worse. Alice wonders if waking is a rule here or a suggestion. Alice sits at the end of the table and tries to join the talk. Questions turn into riddles, and answers slip sideways into nonsense. She feels her patience thinning, strand by strand. Even so, she keeps listening, hoping sense might appear if she waits long enough. The Mad Hatter offers a riddle and demands a solution while rejecting every solution. He complains about time as if time is a person who insulted him. The conversation becomes a knot she cannot untie. Alice finally stands up, deciding she would rather be lost than trapped. Alice leaves the tea table and spots a small door hidden in a tree. The tiny golden key fits as if it has been waiting for this moment. She opens the door and feels a cooler air brush her face. She steps through, choosing motion over argument. A grand rose garden opens ahead with hedges shaped like hearts. The roses look perfect at first glance, like decorations for a celebration. Then small drips of paint catch the light. Beauty here feels staged, and that makes it dangerous. Alice walks the path and notices petals smeared with fresh colour. She hears harsh shouting nearby and freezes mid-step. The garden's sweetness turns sour in her throat. She forces herself to keep moving with slow, careful feet. A living playing card tends the roses with quick, nervous brushstrokes. Paint and perfection become the same task. The card's hands tremble as it fixes mistakes that seem too small to matter. The urgency suggests punishment without showing it. A trumpet sound cuts through the garden and makes Alice stand straight. A royal procession approaches off-screen like a storm behind a curtain. Alice's heart races, but she keeps her face calm. She learns that bravery is sometimes just refusing to flinch. A croquet lawn waits like a game board drawn onto grass. Hoops sit in neat lines, and poles mark invisible rules. The silence before the game feels like a held breath. The air itself seems ready to obey a shout. Alice is pushed into the game and given a mallet. Instructions arrive as contradictions and then change again. She studies the hoop and tries to make sense of the impossible. Her hands stay steady even when her thoughts do not. The purple cat reappears, drifting above a hedge as if gravity is optional. Its grin floats like a sign that danger is amusing to someone. Alice watches it appear and fade in the same breath. The cat's calm makes the chaos feel inevitable. Queen of Hearts rages off-screen, ordering beheadings as if naming chores. The words make Alice's stomach drop even though no blade is seen. Alice whispers to herself that she will not be afraid. The decision is shaky, but it is real. The Duchess returns and speaks about rules and morals as if they are toys. She leans close, insisting that meaning can be forced onto anything with enough confidence. Alice listens, then quietly refuses the lesson. For a moment, the Duchess smiles like she respects the refusal. Sudden shouts erupt, and unseen arrests begin along the path. The game turns into danger with no warning. Alice steps back, searching for a safe direction that keeps changing. Her pulse tells her to run, but she forces herself to think first. A rocky path leads down toward the sea, and the wind scrapes every blade of grass. The sound of waves feels cleaner than the shouting behind her. Alice follows the path as if the ocean might wash the rules away. The sky darkens, and the air tastes like salt. A griffin appears on the rocks and addresses Alice with brisk authority. It speaks like an officer guiding a recruit through a drill. Alice follows because the tone leaves no room for argument. Each step closer to the water feels like stepping into a story already in progress. A sad creature with a calf head sits on wet stones and weeps over old lessons. The grief is deep, even when the words are absurd. Alice's confusion softens into sympathy. She realizes this land can hurt in quiet ways too. Alice sits with the two creatures and shares pieces of her journey. Saying it aloud makes every moment sound stranger, and that somehow steadies her. She listens to their songs and stories until the wind chills her hands. For a while, the world feels less like a trap and more like a tale. A vast court hall rises ahead with banners and long tables, too formal to be comforting. The space swallows sound and turns whispers into echoes. Alice steps inside and feels the story tightening around her. This is where nonsense pretends to become law. The White Rabbit appears again, now as a court messenger with a scroll and a ticking watch. Ceremony hangs on its shoulders like another coat. It checks the time and reads as if the room itself is late. Alice senses the trial has been waiting for her arrival. The Mad Hatter is called to speak and tries to sound proper while wobbling on jokes. His confidence flickers like a candle in wind. Every strange sentence is treated as if it is evidence. Alice watches, realizing that logic here is just another costume. Alice is dragged into the argument as proof and witness at once. She grows larger as her confidence rises, until the hall feels too small to contain her. Someone declares she is nearly 2 miles high, and Alice refuses to be impressed. The Queen screams for punishment, and Alice answers with a clear, steady voice. A puzzling poem is produced and demanded to explain everything. The King insists on meaning, and the Queen insists on obedience. Alice points out that the poem proves nothing and that the accusations have no weight. The courtroom erupts into chaos and the rules break like thin glass. Back at the riverbank, Alice's sister blinks awake from her daydream. The sunlight warms her hands and the book feels heavier with imagined memories. She watches the river and can almost hear laughter carried on the breeze. In her mind, the strange land becomes a story she will tell with love.